The skillet hit the floor before she even knew she'd dropped it. One moment Clara Dawson was trying to fry the last of her flour into something edible, and the next she was staring at the shadow stretching across her cabin doorway, broad, steady, and unmoving. She froze, breathing shallow, waiting for the silhouette to shift into the kind of trouble she'd been running from for 4 months. Instead, a low voice said, "Your stove's smokin' itself half to death, man." Clara blinked. The man stepped into view, tall as a cottonwood and built like he'd wrestled more fences than he'd built. His hat was dusted with trail grit, his expression carved in the kind of quiet patience only the lonely carried. She recognized him, Buck Holden, the rancher folks whispered about with that mix of respect and sorrow reserved for a man who'd buried too many things, including the wife he rarely spoke of. Clara's heart eased a little. Only a little. "I didn't ask for visitors," she said softly, retrieving the skillet. "Didn't figure you did." Buck tipped his hat. "But smoke's visible halfway to the ridge, and last thing you need is this place catchin' fire. Heard you'd been livin' out here alone. Heard you were tryin' to make do." Her cheeks burned. Word traveled fast in the valley, the widow with barely enough food to fill a plate, the one too proud to beg but too stubborn to leave. "I'm managing." He nodded once, respectful. "Sure. Only," he reached into his coat, withdrawing a folded sheet, "I'm lookin' for someone who can cook regular. My ranch hands are fixin' to mutiny over my meals." Clara hesitated, her hunger and exhaustion tugging in opposite directions. He cleared his throat. "I can give shelter. Warm meals. Half wages." But, he looked at her then, more gently than she expected. "I've got conditions." Of course he did. Everyone had conditions with widows. "What kind?" she asked. Buck's voice softened to something almost shy. "I'll need you to cook food that fills the house. Not just the belly." She frowned. "Meaning?" He held her gaze. "Meaning you season it with laughter. Haven't heard that sound on my ranch in a long while." It was such an unexpected condition she nearly laughed then and there, but the moment caught in her throat. Before she could answer, a hard knock rattled the back of the cabin, sharp as a warning. Buck stiffened. "You expectin' anyone?" The knock came again, this time louder. Lara's voice shrank to a whisper. "No. No one should know I'm here." Buck angled himself between her and the door with a reflex born of habit. Protective. Solid. The knock came again, followed by a rough voice. "Widow Dawson, we know you're in there." Clara's blood turned cold. That voice, she knew it. Jonas Mercer, cousin of her late husband, a man who believed everything James left behind should have belonged to him. Including her. She had run from him once already. Buck's jaw tensed. "You want me to open that door?" "No," her voice trembled. "Not to him." A long second passed, and Buck nodded like a man sealing an oath. He stepped toward the door. "You stay behind me." But before he reached it, Jonas's voice sharpened. "I ain't come for trouble. Just heard you might be needin' a ride back to town. Word is you're fixin' to starve out here." His tone held mock concern. "Wouldn't want you dependent on some stranger." Clara bristled. Buck's brows lifted. "You know him?" "Unfortunately." Buck rested his hand on the doorframe. "Do you want to go with him?" he asked, voice level. The question stunned her. Most men would have decided for her, claimed authority, stepped into ownership. But Buck held utterly still, waiting. The choice belonged to her. "No," Clara whispered. Louder, "No. I'm not going anywhere with him." A beat passed. Buck nodded again, steady, unhurried. "All right." Then, raising his voice, "She's stayin' put. Move along." Jonas spat something hostile and stalked off, boots grinding into the frost. But Clara knew men like him didn't leave forever. He'd be back, and he'd be angrier. Her hands shook as she picked up the skillet again. "You shouldn't have done that," she murmured. Buck shrugged lightly. "You said no. That's enough." His simplicity hit her harder than Jonas's threats. She'd gone months without anyone respecting her voice, her choices, her grief. Buck stepped closer, careful not to crowd her. "My offer stands. Room, board, wages. You cook. You laugh sometimes." His mouth tipped in a wry near smile. "Or at least try." Clara swallowed. "If I say yes, he'll come for me." "He might," Buck admitted. "But you'll be on Holden Ranch. And I don't take kindly to men who think they own what ain't theirs." Outside, 2 riders appeared on the horizon, moving slow, deliberate, toward the cabin. Buck's eyes narrowed. Friends of his? Clara looked out the window and felt her stomach plummet. No. Worse. The riders came like a dust storm, silent until they were close enough for the ground to tremble under their horses' hooves. Sun caught on their rifles. Their coats hung long, brushing the stirrups with outlaw casualness. Clara recognized the brand burned onto the flank of one man's horse, a crooked spur. The Spur Brothers gang. Her husband had once done odd work for them. Dangerous work. Work that left debts unpaid. Buck reached for the lantern, doused its flame, and spoke in a low voice. "Stay away from the windows." She obeyed, heart hammering. The riders stopped just yards from the porch. "Widow Dawson," one called, voice dripping menace. "We're here for what James owed us. Heard you're still holding on to the last of his belongings." Clara's breath hitched. "I don't have anything of his." Buck stepped onto the porch, leaving the door cracked so she could hear. "Evenin', boys," he drawled. "You're on my land. State your business, then get on with it." The leader spat a brown streak onto the dust. "Business ain't yours. The widow's late husband owed us money. Or something worth that money." His gaze drifted past Buck as though trying to peel back the shadows inside the cabin. Buck didn't move from the doorway. "You've got a problem with her, you got a problem with me." That earned a dark laugh. "And who might you be?" "Buck Holden." A ripple of tension moved through the riders. Even outlaws knew the stories, about the man who fought wolves with a broken rifle, who defended his land against 6 rustlers alone. Clara watched their expressions shift, anger mixing with calculation. The leader recovered fast. "Ain't lookin' for a fight, Holden. Just what's ours." "You got nothin' here," Buck said. "Now ride off before the sun's down." The men exchanged a glance, then wheeled their horses, disappearing into the dusk with the promise of return hanging like a noose in the air. Buck shut the door but didn't move away from it. "They'll come back," Clara whispered. "Yeah," he said. "They will." His eyes found hers, steady, unreadable. "You got any idea what they think you're keepin'?" Clara hesitated. Slowly, painfully, she nodded. "There's something James left behind. Something they'll kill for." Buck stepped closer. "What is it?" Before she could answer, a window shattered, glass exploding inward as a warning shot screamed through the cabin. Buck pulled Clara down behind the overturned table as the bullet lodged itself deep into the far wall. Silence followed, terrible, thick silence. Then the sound of retreating hoofbeats faded into the evening. A warning, not an attack. They wanted her scared. They'd succeeded. When the danger ebbed enough to breathe again, Buck lit a small lamp. "You hurt?" "No," her voice wavered. "Just, shaken." He crouched across from her, face lit in amber glow, rough features softened by concern. "Tell me what James left." "I can't help if I don't know." Clara exhaled as though releasing years of held breath. She went to her small trunk, lifted the false bottom, and withdrew a wrapped cloth bundle. Inside was a ledger, pages filled with the Spur Brothers' dealings, payouts, names, dates. Enough to put them away forever. They made James keep records for them, she whispered. He hated it. Planned to hand it over to the law, but he died before he could. Buck took the ledger carefully, as if it were a ticking charge. And they think you still don't know what it is? I've been hiding for months, moving from cabin to cabin. Every time I think I'm safe, she blinked back tears. I just want to live. To cook. To breathe without looking over my shoulder. Buck studied her for a long moment, the quiet stretching warm instead of cold. You will, he said finally. Not alone. Clara lowered her gaze. Why? You don't even know me. He gave a slow shake of the head. I know what it is to lose more than a man should. I know what it is to live with ghosts. And I know a brave woman when I see one. Her throat tightened. She hadn't felt brave in a long time. He stood and offered his hand. Come to the ranch. Tomorrow. I'll give you a room by the kitchen. You'll cook for the men. I'll handle the rest. She took his hand. Warm, steady. Still, doubt flickered. They'll follow me there. I'm counting on it, Buck said. Because the only way this ends is if we finish it. Their hands lingered longer than necessary, the shared stillness blooming into something fragile yet real. Outside, coyotes howled, a chorus that sounded too close. Buck looked toward the dark windows. Tomorrow, Clara. Everything changes. Dawn bled across the sky in muted reds when Clara arrived at Holden Ranch. The cookhouse chimney already puffed thin trails of smoke. Buck stood with two ranch hands, brothers with matching tempers, reviewing rifle placements and vantage points around the property. Morning, he greeted, voice gentler than the scene deserved. Clara returned it with a nervous nod. She carried the ledger tucked inside her apron, close enough to feel its weight with every breath. By noon, the men had fortified the ranch without making it look fortified. They worked with quiet purpose, a few extra rocks stacked near the barn here, a moved wagon there. Nothing obvious, everything deliberate. Buck spoke little, but when he caught Clara watching from the kitchen doorway, he offered the faintest smile. It steadied her. The Spur brothers arrived just past dusk. Their silhouettes crested the hill first, 5 riders, guns already drawn. Not a negotiation this time. A reclaiming. Or a killing. Buck stepped onto the porch, rifle resting loose in his hands. You boys are trespassing. The leader grinned. We warned you. He motioned. 2 riders flanked left. 2 right. Their movements were calculated, until Buck's ranch hands stepped out, rifles leveled, turning the field into a quiet, loaded standoff. Clara emerged behind Buck before he could stop her. The leader's eyes lit up. There she is. Bring us the ledger, widow, and maybe we let Holden keep his ranch. Buck tensed, but Clara stepped forward, voice steady. You want it? Come take it. She lifted the ledger high, letting the last rays of dusk catch its worn edges. The leader snarled and spurred forward. That was his mistake. A shot cracked, Buck's. The leader dropped from his saddle, hitting the dirt with a thud that silenced the valley. His men froze, rage warring with fear. Clara held her ground. Ride away, she warned, or the law gets this ledger by morning. Another rider lunged, but the ranch hands fired warning shots that sent him sprawling backward. The gang retreated, not defeated, but broken. By the time the dust settled, they were fading specks on the horizon. Clara trembled, knees threatening to give. Buck caught her elbow. Easy. It's over. For the first time in months, she let herself believe it. Epilogue. Weeks passed. The ledger went to the marshal, the Spur brothers scattered like coyotes chased from a carcass. Clara's cooking brought warmth back to the ranch, and laughter, shy, hesitant at first, returned to her like a visitor who finally remembered the way home. One evening, as fireflies sparked over the fields, Buck leaned against the porch rail beside her. You kept your conditions, Clara teased. You said shelter for cooking, and laughter. He looked at her with that quiet steadiness. You brought both. More than I expected. She rested her head against his shoulder, comfortable in a way she never imagined she'd feel again. Years later, folks would say Holden Ranch changed the day a weary widow walked onto it carrying nothing but a skillet and a secret. But Clara always remembered it differently. It changed, she thought, the moment a cowboy asked her to season her cooking with laughter. And gave her a home where it finally felt safe to do so. Final shot, Clara and Buck watching the horizon fade into dusk, two silhouettes framed against a peaceful ranch that no longer feared the night.